and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. Patreon-sponsored review time again, and of another animated superhero episode. Surprisingly, it's about one that's not actually talked about very much. The Iron Man animated series. It's entirely likely that there's a huge subset of fans who will write complicated book-length essays about the Iron Man animated series, but I've never encountered them. And I have plenty I can say about Spider-Man animated, and I may still, since a fan has been kind enough to donate UK DVD rips of the show to me. But the other Marvel shows at the time, including Incredible Hulk, Fantastic Four, and indeed Iron Man, seem to have been largely forgotten. I did watch them as a kid, though I admit I've forgotten quite a bit of them. With the Fantastic Four, I mostly remember the ones featuring the Silver Surfer, and my confusion when the Silver Surfer animated series came about that seemed to not be a spin-off of it. And because these are series I haven't revisited since I was a kid, I also forgot a bunch of stuff about them. For example, I thought the episode we were reviewing today also featured a subplot exploring Tony's origin story. That was a different episode altogether. But let's talk about this for a bit. While the show is Iron Man's, it can also be considered a team show. While, of course, War Machine was in it, it also featured the name and characters of a Marvel team book at the time called ForceWorks, a group formed by Iron Man to be, of course, a proactive superhero team all about preventing disasters before they happened. I seriously don't get why this is such a recurring thing. Is there just an assumption that when superheroes aren't punching criminals, they're sitting on their asses in the lounge watching daytime soaps? Yeah, I could be tracking down that stolen nuclear device, but look, I need to see if Jessica and Victor are going to get back together. ForceWorks lasted for 22 issues and roughly the same length of time as the Iron Man animated series, so I guess the two were joined at the hip. The members who were a part of this escapade included War Machine, the Scarlet Witch, Spider-Woman Julia Carpenter, we'll be getting to her a bit next month during Event Comics Month, Hawkeye, and a dude named Sentry introduced for ForceWorks. Basically, he was an alien who contained the memories of 100 of his people's greatest warriors and had the whole wise alien warrior thing going for him. Back to the actual animated series, the first season was, well, to put it simply, crap. For an action-adventure show, it was kinda boring. Sure, it had some superpowered fights, especially when you have such an eclectic group of characters to play with, but it was mostly just dull. Dull music, dull characters, when they actually had characterization, dull villains, and dull stories. At times, they actually had half-decent ideas for stories. I mean, how could you not when your first episode involves killing the crew of a Russian submarine, then letting them emerge a year later as zombies to kill more of the populace and convert them into slaves of the Mandarin? And yes, they were allowed to say kill and die in this show. But the execution is more than a little lacking. Everything just ends up being really bland. Half the characters talk in a kind of hushed, whispery way for no good reason. Half the time I can't understand Sentry because he's so quiet compared to the music. The sound effects are stock and basic, the animation is often flat and cheap, and Iron Man's suiting up sequence is pretty much a Power Rangers morphing sequence considering how often they use it. What's worse, for some reason they decided to include a CGI part of it. It catches you by surprise every single time they show it. It's not like any other part of the show is in CG, just this one bit that clumsily transitions from traditional animation to the CGI. Spider-Man the animated series tried to use CGI to create a more realistic New York for Spidey to swing around in, with real buildings as inspiration. Iron Man uses it for one awkward PlayStation 1 cutscene. Spidey's CGI was far from perfect, but they knew it was better used for occasional special effects stuff, not suddenly having Peter Parker cross over with Reboot. The first season was actually so bad and so poorly received that the second season got a massive overhaul. Tony's main armor was redesigned, most of ForceWorks left after the first episode, there was better character development, better music, better animation, although Tony got a mullet, so not everything was great. Still, hugely improved theme song. We'll get to the actual theme song in the review, but yeah, things were definitely looking up. Sadly, the show still ended with the second season. At least it got a proper series finale, which is more than can be said for many other series. Still, interestingly enough, the Marvel 90s cartoons seemed to try their hand at a shared universe before DC's more successful animated universe. It's not like it was well planned or anything, but Spider-Man had a crossover with X-Men a year before the Superman animated series came out, and even then, World's Finest didn't come out until 1997, officially linking the two series together. Conversely, after the X-Men crossover, there were guest appearances by Iron Man and War Machine in Spidey's show. One could argue they were different versions, but they did have the same voice actors for the two, plus said actors reprising their roles in Incredible Hulk, which in turn had some voice actors reprising their roles from the Fantastic Four, and then it all coming together back to Spidey, where the crossover Secret Wars was adapted, which, again, Event Comics Month, featuring one of the Fantastic Four's actors, Storm's actress from the X-Men, and of course Iron Man and his actor. Is it an official universe? Not really, but I do appreciate the fact that one could consider all this happening in the same Marvel universe. Hell, you could probably see the teased Clone Saga from Spider-Man come to fruition when there's a blink and you'll miss it cameo by the Scarlet Spider in a Fantastic Four episode. Unfortunately, today we're not talking about anything good. No. For the Patreon request was for the last episode of Iron Man's first season. So let's dig into the first season finale of the show, The Wedding of Iron Man.
Welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. Linkara's gonna teach you all a lesson you won't learn. Brodsky, you're not the smartest. Life out, you're not an artist. Anyone who's had a bad comic published, it could be your turn. Linkara, he's a man punch, wears a party hat. Linkara, he has a magic gun. Where'd he purchase that? Linkara, coins, robots, Amazons and trucks. Linkara, this comic sucks. Linkara.
We begin with the theme song, and it's okay. Nothing spectacular, but you compare it with Season 2's and it pales in comparison. It's not helped by the visuals, which shows just a lot of basic stock shots or that weird cardboard cutout style movement with the logo. On that same note, it feels the need to name all the villains of the show, but only name War Machine for the good guys. It's like they ran out of time making the theme song and figured, let's face it, who the hell cares who Sentry is? We truly open with Tony Stark struggling.
It doesn't have to go this way, Tone. There's still time to change your mind.
Damn it, Rhodey! This new armor will let me poop whenever I want and use it for fuel! I'm not gonna stop now! Of course, no, it's just his tie, which you'd think he'd be rich enough to afford someone to do this for him. Or build a robot to do it.
Just never figured it'd be so soon.
Neither did I, Jim. But as Shakespeare said in Julius Caesar, there's a tide in the affairs of men.
Wait, was he trying to tie his tie in the church lobby? If so, geez, it's got a sweet beachfront view with huge windows. Or did he start talking to Rhodey, drove over to the church, and then continued talking?
Space is warped and time is bendable.
Naturally, with Tony Stark being a billionaire playboy philanthropist, his wedding is being covered by the paparazzi. Or possibly Robin Leach. I'm not sure what accent he's going for other than snooty dickhead.
Not since Madonna married what's-his-name, and Liz Taylor married everyone else, has a wedding generated as much ballyhoo.
Yeah, I mean, there's gotta be like 30 people there. And one cop car. Right up there with Kim Kardashian and Kanye West's wedding. Also note that, like, you're the only one covering it, dude. So, who is Tony marrying? Julia Carpenter, of course, who had a kinda sorta relationship going with Tony throughout the cartoon. But then again, both the Scarlet Witch and the villainess Hypnotia apparently had a thing for Stark. Must be the mustache.
Dearly beloved.
Holy crap, I think that's the same minister who married Peter and Mary Jane over in Spider-Man. You think it was Tony who gave him the recommendation?
I'm surprised to be here, too. It's not that I don't care for Julia. I do. And for Wanda. And for Veronica Benning, my physical therapist,
But my attorney said I couldn't marry all three at once, so I went for the one in the skin-tight outfit. He explains how this all started 9 days ago when he was reviewing footage from a previous episode. Yeah, this season finale is kind of a clip show. Wisely, instead of being treated to the same exact dialogue sequences and flashbacks or something, it's just footage recorded on Stark's computers of previous battles they'd fought. And even then, they're very short, mostly there to make a quick point. The first clip was of a field test of one of Stark's vehicles fighting against one made by business rival Justin Hammer.
a single unanswered question that kept rearing its very ugly head time after time.
Would a beard make me even sexier, or is it overkill?
All right, lay it on us already, man. I don't want to be late for the Dodger game.
Clint, what the hell accent was that? Yeah, he's a real problem in this series. I think sometimes he's going for a Brooklyn thing and other times a Boston accent, but instead he just sounds incomprehensible. After a remark about the possibility of rain, Century has this to contribute.
And it never rains in Southern California. I heard that in a song, so it must be true. In my galaxy, music always conveys truth.
And as the song goes, intergalactic, planetary, intergalactic. Tony wants them to watch the tapes of their previous battles.
And see if they raise the same question for you that they did for me.
The answer is yes, Tony. That armor does make your butt look big. But unless you want to redesign the whole thing around that, I don't think there's much you can do. The team realizes that it's an odd coincidence that the Mandarin kept knowing exactly where Iron Man would be, or where the tests of their new equipment could be.
It's final proof that the Mandarin has somehow managed to eavesdrop on us for quite some time.
Damn! Now we'll never be able to order 20 pizzas and have them delivered to the Mandarin without him knowing about it in advance! Rhodey agrees with Tony.
Look, it's the only explanation that makes sense. Until we find Mandarin's bug, our house is made of glass and we're running around without any pants.
Funny, that doesn't seem to bother the Scarlet Witch. We soon see the bug, or rather bird, that's been spying on them. Apparently the Mandarin has Laserbeak working for him. The Robo Raven belongs to MODOK. MODOK's a creepy little villain who surprisingly has not yet made an appearance in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Basically a mutated human with advanced intellect and psionic abilities, which kind of comes with the territory of the giant head that requires the chair for him to move around. In this series, he's also an expert in cybernetics, hence the robot bird. The Mandarin points out that the Raven seems to have an affinity for him.
Every raven loves a cuckoo bird.
MODOK? Cuckoo? Oh, really, Hypnosha? You are a scream.
Wait, I said that wrong. I mean, you should scream. Speak up, lady!
Yes, I must remember to tell David Letterman you're available for a guest shot.
Why not? He had the Avengers on once. Realizing that the heroes are onto them, the Mandarin demands action.
Replay every record of armory activity the Raven brought us and cross-check it against the complete video file of our confrontations with Iron Man and his lackeys.
They're going to stand around and look at old clips, not before we stand around and look at old clips. The Mandarin thinks that somewhere in the clips is a clue to Iron Man's true identity, although Hammer wonders what the hell difference it makes if they know his true identity.
Iron Man cannot be killed, but the man inside can!
Haven't you idiots watched Batman Begins? A symbol is everlasting and stuff! Batman is so much cooler than Iron Man. So we finally get back to the wedding, for like 20 seconds before we return to clips. Using their various abilities, ForceWorks deduced that the bug on their base must be mobile, and what's more, it was specifically tapping into the communications feed of the monitor inside the armory.
The armory monitor's got more anti-bug gunk on it than a sunburned Boy Scout at a jamboree in the Everglades.
Guys, did Hawkeye have a stroke in between scenes? Tony has inspiration, figuring that if something was physically touching the base, there would have been some minor electrical conductivity.
Can I send a wave for the brochure to explain what you just said?
Hawkeye, you are in no position to question another person's ability to speak clearly. Using the base's external cameras, they see the Robo-Bird in action during one of their other episodes. With that, Tony says they have to assume the Mandarin knows more than they'd want him to, and that by now he knows they're onto him. Although he really has no evidence of that, they just need to move the plot forward. Since they're onto him, he figures the Mandarin will only have one last chance to attack before he loses his major advantage. Back over to the Mandarin, he's reviewing footage and figures something out.
At a time when Stark should have been fighting to preserve his business. He was nowhere to be seen.
Of course! Tony Stark and Iron Man are dating!
Do not understand why you insist on viewing sickening repeat performances of our numerous failures. I would just as soon watch reruns of Gilligan's Island in Norwegian.
MODOK, an acronym that stands for Multilingual Organism Designed Only for Kicking Back and Watching Old Sitcoms. Hammer echoes MODOK's feelings, saying that watching this is a major league bummer.
Ooh, that sounded so contemporary, Justin.
90s slang turns me on for some reason. The Mandarin finally realizes that Iron Man and Tony Stark are the same guy.
Tony Stark is a dead man!
And back to the wedding. I would just like to note that in the episode The Wedding of Iron Man, we are now at the 13.5-minute mark, and only about 2 minutes total have featured the wedding of Iron Man. The two are declared man and wife.
Tony Stark is a dead man. A dead man!
Hypnosia, he's been saying that for 10 minutes now. Shouldn't we do something? First say radical again. The two drive off in Tony's dopey-looking car. Reporter Man says they're off to their honeymoon location.
I'll be waiting in the bushes with my camera crew. And hard news, we don't quit until you do.
So, you're a celebrity porn channel? The Mandarin is soon pursuing the car in his awesome flying saucer ship that he nicked off of Rick Sanchez. Tony and Julia spot a cloud following them and call Rhodey.
I hope our mutual friend will be there when we need him.
Clint is unwrapping his wedding present right this second.
What is this? A briefcase full of books about speaking lessons? No, it's a suitcase armor, which Clint passes off to this random woman, who then activates it. And, of course, the bit that always confused me about this transformation sequence, even as a kid. The suitcase armor unfolds as gray, and then in the next shot is red and yellow. Like, not even a simple transition effect to indicate the color shift? Dear Lord, this show is cheap. Anyway, the woman steps into the armor, for some reason not getting the stock CGI sequence. The Mandarin attacks the car, but fortunately Tony has seen the Batman movies, so his car is equipped with Batmobile-style armor to protect it. However, that's not enough to save them, as the rest of the villains show up to trash the car and throw the two clear of it.
My congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Stark.
Look, Mandarin, the only reason we didn't invite you was because you have a reputation for getting drunk at weddings and ruining the party. The Mandarin starts torturing Tony as Hypnosia, restrains Julia?
I hate to see Tony suffer more than you can imagine.
No other man could say bodacious like him.
Getting uncomfortable, Stark. Would you mind if I call you Iron Man?
I don't think Tony would mind, but I do.
That's not actually Iron Man, that's the trademark lawyer. The villains are quite confused.
This means Tony will live.
I'm beginning to wonder if it's just that Hypnosia hypnotized herself and that's why she talks like that.
What is he doing up there?
Making sure you turkeys are looking the wrong way.
Okay, I take back almost all of my complaints about Hawkeye because he has a hover bike and that is awesome. The villains run like hell while our heroes are also a bit confused by the presence of both Tony and Iron Man.
What?
Wow, it's a good thing you wore a mask under your mask. The Tony who got married was an android.
I cried my eyes out and nobody told me.
We wanted to make sure your tears looked real, Wanda.
The entire plan hinged on you crying and being emotionally distraught, Wanda. And so the episode ends with Reporter Man expositing that the cover story about the hoax wedding was simply a way to distract attention away from a corporate restructuring that eliminated all of his company's debt. I don't know how that works, but then again, I don't have robot duplicates of myself at my beck and call. My robot duplicates tend to want to kill me. And Julia's not exactly unhappy, since now she's got a sex bot at her disposal. Believe it or not, this is actually one of the better episodes of the first season. Don't get me wrong, there's still plenty that's bad here. The dialogue is crap, with either completely unfunny non-jokes or just loaded down with exposition. The animation is pretty dang choppy, the sound balance is pretty terrible at times, and makes it hard to hear the voice acting. Not that we wanted to, since a lot of it is just goofy. And there's no real reason this needed to be a wedding when there are any number of public appearances Tony Stark could have made that would have had the same effect for drawing out the Mandarin. There's also the fact that a lot of the episode is told in a flashback. A flashback that, as far as we can tell, comes from an android who was not present at those events. Hell, the titular wedding barely makes up any significant part of this episode. However, the plot was straightforward, and it handled a clip show better than many other examples of its kind, tying together otherwise unrelated plot points and potential plot holes into a season-spanning conspiracy, and the clips were just a few action shots of other episodes without bogging down the whole thing. The action in the episode is decent, not good, but decent, and there are much worse episodes in this season. Or at least in the so bad it's good kind of way. Next time, we go back to another craptastic series that I haven't revisited in a while, especially since it doesn't have very many issues, with Athena number 3.
You broke my birthday